And today, it's all about the chocolate chips. Hey everyone, my name is Jeff, and this is the Candy Aisle, place for reviews of candy and chocolates and mostly candy bars. But once in a while, once in a blue moon, I like to review cookies and cakes and other things that might. Also, anything that's like an extension of it's like Sour Patch Kids gum, which I have not reviewed, but does exist. This is a kind of a big one, actually. I have reviewed Oreos. I have reviewed Chips Ahoy. I don't do a ton of cookies, but like there's some interesting cookies. This is like kind of a big deal. As a Canadian, of course, I am very familiar with this, but I know lots of my viewers are Americans, so you might not know this brand. This is the President's Choice, the Decadent chocolate chip cookie. So, just as a precursor, like with any of these massive sort of like important quote unquote reviews, just note I'm not an expert. I do, my minimal amount of research. I care about the product and sort of what's in it mostly, but this is like legitimately an important cookie to Canadians. It's a part of Canadiana, as much as people may dislike the Westons these days. We should talk about this cookie before we taste it really quickly, okay? So President's Choice is the house label for the Loblaws group of grocers in Canada. So Loblaws is a grocery chain. It's called Loblaws. It's named after a family, the Loblaw family. But there are multiple SKUs of grocery stores in this chain that I believe span the entire country of Canada. So there's Loblaws, the Real Canadian Superstore, your independent grocer, Fortino's, Zehrs, the Atlantic Superstore. There are high-end, low-end, and middle-end grocery store chains versus, for various markets. If you're in an urban center, if you're in the suburbs, if you're more rural. In Canada, it's interesting. The grocers, like there's, really only about 4 grocery chains, and then they all own a few different SKUs. Of course, there are independent grocers here and there, but you know how it is. Like the rest of the world, they're fewer and further between. Day by day, they keep getting, they're priced out, they're pushed out. It's very difficult for them to make a living. So obviously, try and support them. However, that said, most people invariably have to shop places like Loblaws or, I guess, Walmart. Walmart wasn't around in Canada when I was a kid, but they're pretty prevalent nowadays, especially in suburban markets. That said, I don't normally review house brands as a general sort of a concept for this channel. What I review are things that are easily accessible in the candy aisle. Like you're walking the candy aisle and you could find this or that or this or that. So I do review things that are country specific, but I generally try and avoid house brands with a few notable exceptions. If it's something that's like at a Walmart, the Walmart house brand, the whatever they're called, the Good Value, which I haven't done a ton of because it's kind of low end and I don't really care. But like Brookfield, I think that's a house brand for Walmart. Walmarts are everywhere, so it's pretty accessible. In Canada, President's Choice is everywhere because it's sold at all of these chains across the country. Also, notably, Shoppers Drug Mart, which is a national drugstore, basically, pharmacy drugstore that sells some food as well. President's Choice, this PC brand has been around for quite a while. Very, very successful brand. Like, I don't think people maybe like nowadays understand the context of how successful this house brand was when it was introduced in the late 80s in Canada. So Dave Nichols was the name of the president of Loblaws at the time, and he wanted to introduce a house brand modeled. It's claimed it's modeled after Marks and Spencer's house brand. So rather than going with a lower end house brand, which a lower tier house brand, which is like what most stores would do when they introduce a house brand. Remember, you got to be a big enough size to be able to support. We're going to have an internal private label for whatever the commodities, goods that we sell are. But it said that he wanted to model it after Marks and Spencer. So that means like a high quality house brand, which actually could compete one-to-one with the brand name products. which actually in the Canadian market probably makes sense because, you know, not in a bad way, but like Nabisco, which I don't think was owned by Mondelez at the time. Yeah, maybe it was. But Nabisco, for example, maybe doesn't have as much resources, interest, or care in the Canadian market. It's such a smaller market than the US market immediately there. So like the teams aren't paying as much attention. And you could probably get away with doing some one-to-one sort of like, we're gonna take you on because Nabisco doesn't, it's just such a small market. Like it's a big market in terms of like the dollar value, but like compared to the US market, it's so much smaller. And when you're doing a one-to-one house brand versus the brand name product, you obviously you can put the Decadent cookies right beside the Oreos, or the Chips Ahoy, I guess would be the equivalent, right? And they can competitively price them right there. So it's cheaper and it's a Canadian brand. And this PC brand was all over the Loblaw store. Another thing to note is that I believe, and I didn't see this anywhere, but I really believe that it wasn't just Marks and Spencer, but Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's came like late 60s, 70s, out of California, right? They like revolutionized what private labels could be at grocery stores. Like I believe this is like pre Costco. I mean, I'm sure there must have been like club stores before, but Trader Joe's was a huge deal. If you've ever been to a Trader Joe's, you understand like their products that they sell there are almost all, maybe they are all, I don't think they are all, but they're all in-house products. They're all branded Trader Joe's products, or they're brought in specifically for Trader Joe's. That's the approach that Dave Nichols took when he was launching the President's Choice line. The Decadent chocolate chip cookies became the centerpiece of the President's Choice line of products. And then they were, augmented by a few other, massively successful highlights. I certainly remember the President's Choice Szechuan peanut sauce. Like, let's be real, 1988, Szechuan sauce was not a thing. Like, not bottled, certainly. You'd have to go to a Chinese restaurant to get it. So they had a few mega hits, and I think that those were largely inspired by the approach that Trader Joe's took. President's Choice products were everywhere. They were all over all these stores. But like I said, the chocolate chip cookie, the Decadent chocolate chip cookie, was the centerpiece. And I know that's been a lot of preamble. I'm really sorry for going on so long, but the history of this cookie is fascinating, and its importance in sort of the Canadian food landscape is kind of like, I don't want to undersell it. It is actually a pretty important cookie here. So the approach that they took when making this to make it higher end, one, and this is the reported, so I don't know what it is these days, guys. This is where they launched it, okay? Don't come at me at this. Double the amount of chocolate chips. I know. So double the standard amount of chocolate chips. Semi-sweet chocolate, of course. I think that was already a thing, semi-sweet chocolate. Real butter, that was not widely done. I don't know what Toll House was doing at the time, but I don't think that Chips Ahoy use real butter. And apparently some coconut added into the batter for more of a chew. But I think really it's the extra chocolate chips, and they're high quality chocolate chips, that make this a Decadent product, right? So as this is Canada, there are there's French on the packaging. And here it says since 1988, of course, launched. And then here's the French Le Decadent. Nice. Is this the English side or the French side? This is, okay, here you guys go. Here's your ingredients. Can you read that? Hopefully. Nutrition facts. I don't know. It's all here. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. I think my kids got into this already. I've certainly had these before. Obviously, this is like I said, this is a pretty famous brand of cookies. And I remember eating these as a kid. Yeah. Anyhow, this is how it comes, and then there's, like trays full of them. So what do you think, guys? Like kind of regular cookie size, pretty good size. I wonder, I bet people will complain that they used to be bigger. Everything used to be bigger. Everything used to be bigger. Look at those chips, though. They look great. This smells amazing. Oh my God. Okay, let's see the crumble. There's the crumb. And look inside. Whoa. Look at that. That's huge, right? That's a lot. That is like legitimately, that's a lot of chips. That's a lot of chips for a cookie. I haven't had President's Choice cookies in a while. I try not to shop at Loblaws. But, you do what you got to do. Yeah, honestly, if you're in Canada, it's very difficult to avoid the mega retailers. It's just a smaller market, and so there's a few people have managed to take a lot of control. So, unfortunately, either way, at least it's not, shopping at Walmart. Let's try this. Oh my God. Man. Oh, why don't I have a glass of milk? It's got a real, it's definitely a little crunchier than a Chips Ahoy. Definitely crunchier. Yeah, and I like that. It's got a real nice amount of crumble to it. It's not dry. It's not dry at all. Sometimes you find those, is it the Toll House ones that are too dry? And that makes me crazy. When you got a really good chocolate chip cookie that would be great, it's just dried out, This is fantastic. This is legitimately fantastic. And then the chips have this amazing, chunky kind of quality. And this has been so successful. They've extended the brand into other things. So there's you can buy Decadent brand chocolate chips, Decadent brand ice cream. I'm pretty sure, right? Decadent brand. I don't know, other things. I'm sure you can. It's even though the PC President's Choice brand line, I think has shrunk over the years. Certainly not at its height that it was back in the day. But this is still a centerpiece for the line. Sorry. and it's branched out as well. So there are probably 6 or 7 different versions of the President's Choice cookie. It's not gone crazy like Oreos, but like Chips Ahoy, there's kind of a chewier version. There's a sort of a filled center version. There's a chocolate chunk version. There's a peanut butter version. There's a lot of different interesting versions of this cookie. This, I can't eat anymore. My wife is going to not be happy with me. But this is the classic, the centerpiece, the original, the Decadent chocolate chip cookies. I obviously have some cultural background with this product and a lot of nostalgia for it because this really reminds me of being a kid. I think the taste is great. Legitimately, I think this is a fantastic chocolate chip cookie. If you are a cookie fan, you have to try these. This is a legitimate requirement. I know that it's a house brand, but if you can find these, if you're going to Canada, if you know someone in Canada, get these. It's worth trying. It's definitely worth trying. It's still just a chocolate chip cookie. I get it. Look, I'm not gonna, I know there are people who live and die by chocolate chip cookies. I'm sure that there's some better version of chocolate chip cookies out there probably. But for a mass market packaged chocolate chip cookie, this may be the very best. In fact, I would probably contend that this is the best. But I'm happy to hear, suggestions to the contrary in the comments down below. I'm going to rate the Decadent chocolate chip cookies, the classic, a full 5 out of 5 here on the Candy Aisle. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I will thank you all very much for watching. This was an interesting and I know kind of long review, but I really appreciate you sticking with it. And I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you next time. So long, everyone. Bye-bye.